Okay, so lucky you guys. I actually skipped over one, but I'll post it next week. It was all about the quadratic formula. But instead, we're going to do why we can't divide by zeros. Now, this is just one of the cool things that I talk about this in class, and I get like super excited about it because it's this kind of geeky little thing. Probably get most excited about this and talking about infinity, which again, I will also do next week. So, why can't we divide by zero? If I have, so let's talk about division for a little bit. And I know this is kind of super basic, but stay with me. 4 divided by 2 equals 2, right? So we break 4 into 2 parts. And each group has 2, right? 4 divided by 2 is 2. We also know that multiplication and division are inverse operations, meaning that if you perform one of them, you can undo it with the other one. So 2 times 2 equals 4, which means that 4 divided by 2 is 2. See? You can undo it. 6 times 2 equals 12, which means that 12 divided by 2 is 6, and 12 divided by 6 is 2. Okay, now when we get with zeros, though, things tend to take kind of a weird turn. So if we have 6 divided by 0, how would that work, right? What does that equal? Well, let's say we have 6 people. And say, okay, break those 6 people into 0 groups. What does that mean? Well, we can't break them into one group of 6, because that would just be a group. We can't break them into individuals, because that would just be, 6 groups of 1. We can't break them into 12 groups of half. We can't break them into 24 groups of a quarter. One, because that's really messy, and then the police get involved. And so, but how would we break them into 0 groups? So what is 0 parts of 6? Some people would say 0. 6 divided by 0 is 0. Okay. Well, we know that 0 divided by 6 is also 0. Because if we have nothing and we break that nothing into 6 parts, well, each part still has nothing. Right? So 0 divided by anything. And also, that then follows with, if we take 0, divide by 6 and get 0, well, we can undo that by multiplying 6 by 0 to get 0. Okay? So it's opposite. But if we take 6 and divide it by 0 and get 0, that means we should be able to multiply 0 by 0 and get 6. Because we would be undoing the multiplication or the division with multiplication. Okay? And that doesn't make sense. So, here's another thing. Here's another reason why we can't, when you try to divide by 0 on a calculator, it says undefined. I know if you look in any rules, so anything divided, so if you look in any rule book, you're going to have x divided by x equals 1. Anything divided by itself equals 1, but x can't equal 0. Why? Because we know that 6 times divided by 6 equals 1. 6 times 6 over 0 equals 0. 1, because 1 times 0. There are 2 different ways. You can go 6 times 0 over 6 equals 0. That's a 6, not a 0 on the bottom. Or 6 times 6 equals 1 times 0. 6 over 6 is 1, so 1 times 0 is 0. But keep in mind, they've got to be opposites. Okay. Okay, so if we run this with anything other than 0, then everything works out fine. And these back and forths all work and things like that. But what about 0 over 0? Well, 0 over 0, does that equal 1? It's freezing. Does that equal 1 or does that equal 0? Because if 0 over 0 times 6, if 0 over 0 equals 1, then 0 over 0 times 6 would be 1 times 6 and equals 6. But 6 times 0 over 0 would then equal 0 over 0, which would then equal 1. 1 times 6 equals 6. Yeah, so there's just no good way to do it. Because if we have a rule for how that works, then it's okay. What do you need, hon? Okay, you're good. If we have a rule for dividing by 0, whether it equals 0, whether it equals 1, whether, whatever that rule is, it automatically conflicts with other rules that we have. And so what you'll notice is that a lot of the rules we have exclude 0. So the rules will say this works for everything except for 0. So whenever you have 0 in the denominator, you're going to find an exclusion to a rule. And this is why. It's because we can't have a single answer for what division by 0 looks like, because you can't break something into 0 pieces, unless you're some magician and you can unmake things, and then you can just make things disappear. So until we learn how to scientifically make things not be, not going to be able to divide by 0.